What's up everyone, and thank you for choosing to learn with LAM. Today we're going to be learning how to do mole ratios. This is a really important skill to develop prior to stoichiometry, so make sure you pay attention because anytime you're trying to move from one type of particle to another, you're going to need ratios. Now, there are a couple of different ways to do mole ratios, but I find this one the most consistent and the easiest to apply, so this is what I'm going to teach. I'm going to start off by proving that you actually know how to do ratios logically, and hopefully that gives us some confidence moving forward. Let's start with a practice problem. If you have 4 tricycles, how many wheels do you have? If you said 12 wheels, you got it. Okay, here's another. If you have 8 wheels, well, how many cars can you make? Was that 2 cars? Most definitely. See, we do ratios in our head all the time, or at least the simple ones. But let's take a look at how ratios work mathematically. Going back to the tricycles, before doing any calculations, we need to know the relationship between tricycles and wheels. That's the ratio. The ratio is, for every 1 tricycle, there are 3 wheels. Once I have that ratio, I'm going to turn my setup into fractions, and I'm going to put my knowns and unknowns on the appropriate sides. So I know I have 4 tricycles. I'll write that down on the tricycle side of the ratio. And I don't know how many wheels I have, so I'll put an X on the wheel side. From there, I'm going to cross multiply. So I have 1 times X equals 3 times 4. And I can simplify that to X equals 12. And because the X was on the wheel side of the ratio, I know that my unit is wheels. Let's do this again for the car example. In this case, I'm setting up a ratio between wheels and cars. I know that there are 4 wheels for every 1 car. So I'm going to put 8 wheels on my wheel side, and I'll put X cars on the car side because I don't know how many cars I have right now. From there, we'll cross multiply again, so I get 4x equals 1 times 8. I'll divide 4 from both sides to isolate for x, and I get x equals 2, and because it's on the car side of the ratio, it's 2 cars. Okay, I think it's time for a chemistry example. Let's look at sucrose. Now, sucrose is made up of 12 carbons, 22 hydrogens, and 11 oxygens. So if I have 4 moles of sucrose, how many moles of oxygen do I have? And what if I have 3 moles of carbon? How many moles of sucrose do I have? And lastly, if I have 5.5 moles of hydrogen, how many moles of carbon do I have? All right, let's get started. First thing I need to do is, as always, set up a ratio. In this case, the ratio is sucrose to oxygen. Looking at the chemical formula, I can see that 1 sucrose has 11 oxygens, so that's my ratio. I know I have 4 moles of sucrose, so I'm going to write that on the sucrose side of my ratio. And I don't know my oxygen, so I'm going to put an X on the oxygen side. From there, we cross multiply, and I get 44 moles of oxygen. Ready for round 2? Setting up a ratio between carbon and sucrose, I can see that there are 12 carbons in each sucrose, so that's my ratio. Again, I know I have 3 moles of carbon, but I put an X for sucrose. Cross multiply, and I get 12x equals 1 times 3, and I'll divide both sides by 12 to get x equals 0.25 moles of sucrose. And just so we're all on the same page, it is perfectly fine to have a decimal or a fraction value for your moles. It's the same way that you can have half a dozen donuts. All right, just one more. This ratio is between hydrogen and carbon, and I'll look at my formula again to see that in a sucrose molecule, there are 22 hydrogen atoms compared to 12 carbon atoms. So my ratio is 22 hydrogens to 12 carbons. 5.5 moles of hydrogen from the question, X moles for carbon, cross multiply, divide by 22, and I see that if I have 5.5 moles of hydrogen in sucrose, then I will have 3 moles of carbon. And that's that. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Good job, everyone. If you find that you need a little extra help, please feel free to check out my other videos for tips and tricks on how to succeed in school. And as always, thanks for learning with LAM.